This recording goes along with my PowerPoint presentation. It is served to explain the core tenets of the U.S. Constitution. My name is Frances Connor. As we get into the introduction for this presentation is to inform learners of the core tenets of government. The presentation gives direct meaning of each tenet while providing examples of how the areas of government work. The learner will be able to engage in by listening and responding to rhetorical questions and ideas to think about as the presentation is being played. Any additional questions or ideas can be discussed via email. My email address is francesconnor@gmail.com. The purpose of this presentation is to inform learners of the areas of government and make a connection with each branch and how it relates in education. There are 6 areas of government. We're going to look at checks and balances, federalism, judicial review, limited government, popular sovereignty, separation of powers. These areas help citizens as well as elected officials understand how each area of government works and how to serve the people. No area of government has total power. The people give the government power through voting. So when we vote, we decide who has our elected positions, and these individuals are the ones that make decisions for the people, usually based upon their influences as well as what citizens are requesting and what the voters' needs are. Popular sovereignty. That's the first one that we'll look at. The first area is popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty gives citizens the right to vote. Citizens have the right to run for political office to represent the people. The reason for popular sovereignty is so that no one person or family can have total power. So during the forming of our U.S. Constitution, they wanted to make sure that we broke away from the Great Britain. And when we're in breaking away from the Great Britain, we had to create a government that served the people by the people. So they were our founding forefathers were very strategic in making sure that our system was a system that we were allowed, that any man can be represented in. You didn't have to be a member of the royal family or anything like that to have power in terms of serving the people in government. Then we have limited government. The government can only do what the people allow. They must follow the requests of the people and serve the interests of the general public. If the people are not in favor of the elected official, the citizens can impeach the official. The impeach can only take place in courts if they find them guilty. Getting an elected official impeached can be challenging. So an impeachment, they have to have due process. So we can't just fire our elected officials. They have to be recommended for impeachment, and then through our court systems, they will decide if they are eligible to be impeached. Then we have the separation of powers, and I'll just give a brief description of those, and that's going to be 3 different branches. So the separation of power is legislative, executive, and judicial. Legislative branch is made up of the House of Senate, known collectively as Congress. So that's our House of Representatives. That's that's our Senate. Those are the legislators. Among their powers, they are able to declare war, regulate interstate and foreign commerce, control taxes and spending policies. They also regulate our dollar. The executive branch carries out and enforces law. It includes the president, vice president, the cabinet, executive departments, independent agencies, and other boards and commissions. So these are more so like the president. So the Supreme Court is above the president, and we'll talk a little bit more about who they are and what they do later. The third branch of government is the judicial branch, which is made up of the Supreme, Circuit, and Magistrate, local, and city. So to break that down, it's just your local government, your local city government that's ran from county to county, state to state. That's how I like to say it in my mind to make more sense. Checks and balances is simply as it is. Checks and balances limits the power of other branches. This ensures that other branches are not misusing their power through a system called checks and balances. Congress has the power to create laws. The president has the power to veto them, and the Supreme Court may declare laws unconstitutional. Congress consists of 2 houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives, and can override the president and veto with 2 of 3 votes in the House. So that means if the president set a law or put something in place and Congress feel like it is not fair or would not serve the people, then they have the right to veto it at the Supreme Court level. Then we have federalism. The government is divided into levels, and that's the federal, state, and local. And this goes back to the other point that we made. Federal laws levy taxes, regulate commerce, establish uniforms, naturalism, establish fort of courts, and so on and so forth. They also print money, as I said earlier. So that's what they do at the federal level. Then we have state. State governments to promote the state economy, to take operations control over government programs and individuals such as schools, social programs, and risk management. Schools, that's a key point because I'm going to go back to that. Local government is responsible for a range of vital services for people and businesses in defined areas. Among them, well-known functions such as social care, schools, housing, planning, waste collection, but also lesser-known ones such as licenses, business support, registrar service, and pest control. So that's what our local government do. They kind of take care of the local issues that we have, and then we have the state. Now, the state and the local government does have a marriage in some ways, especially when it comes to education, because when the federal government puts something in place, let's say No Child Left Behind or something like, or an act like that, then the state regulates it. So once the federal government send that down, then the state decides how each county within their state is going to carry out what has been suggested by government. And then we have the judicial review. The Supreme Court and other courts have the power to review the other levels of government. Judicial review can review laws passed by the federal, state, or local government, the executive action by the president, and court ruling. They decide what is constitution and what is not. Okay, and so I was talking about this earlier, and I said I'll break down the Supreme Justice, or what have you, of the Supreme Court. So you have one Chief Justice, and you also have 8 Associate Justices. That makes 9 people. These individuals are chosen by the president, and they usually serve in these seats for life. Usually they don't give up the job once they have it. And they, in rare cases, they retire. So we're going to make a connection here. Is it important for learners to understand how government works as it relates to education? Due to education reform, the state plays a major role in making decisions for local and city governments. For example, the federal government may make a new policy such as No Child Left Behind or Every Student Success Act. No Child Left Behind, we know that came from President Bush, and Every Student Success came from Obama. When these policies are given out, they're given out at the federal level, which is passed down to the state level, and then the state passes it out locally to determine how we're going to implement these policies and how we're going to make sure that they serve the needs of our people as best as possible. Looking at the demographics, social and economic barriers that may make these that may create challenges for these policies. The state sends it down locally, and the local officials decide how to handle it, and that's usually handled at the superintendent level. In closing, understanding how policies work and how they are passed down gives citizens a better understanding of what to expect in terms of education act set by the federal government. Understanding that checks and balances ensure all areas of government have a fair opportunity to use its power, and no one is subject to any actions without due process of law. While local government, school, district can make policies, it is the state decision to determine how these policies are carried out. So a school district can mandate a rule or put something in place for discipline, and at the state level, they can review that and determine if that is constitutional or not constitutional or fair law practice. The Supreme Court usually is the final level. So if for some reason a parent is unhappy with some type of policy by the district, the state will review it. If the parent is still unhappy, then they can possibly take that to the federal level. This concludes my presentation. I hope that you guys enjoy. Once again, my name is Frances Connor. Thank you.